Hello and welcome. This is Borno Restoration. I am Jessie Tafida. On today's episode of the program, we will take you through efforts made by Governor Zulum in addressing the plight of vulnerable women and girls from education, job creation, economic empowerment, and resettlement. Before we bring you all this, let's give you the latest on Borno today. Board members of the Northeast Development Commission. They are here on a courtesy visit to the Borno State Governor Zulum. Managing Director Mohammed El-Kali informed the governor that the commission is here to present a check of 2 billion naira to support traders of the Maiduguri Monday market.
The board was considering how can we commit or support in making the traders comfortable and restart their activities. So the board has decided to give a grant of 2 billion naira to support the traders in taking off their business.
We want to say that we are determined to carry out the mandate for which the commission was established. And we are still here now to see what we can still do, increase upon what we have started.
Let me once again.
Borno State Governor Zulum appreciates the support NEDC provides the people of the sub-region, especially the displaced. He assured that the funds will reach the targeted beneficiaries.
We are glad that the federal government of Nigeria has established the Northeast Development Commission with a view to addressing the root causes of this insurgency, which are not limited to increasing poverty, increasing infrastructural deficit, and increasing climate vulnerabilities. We want the Northeast Development Commission to invest in medium and longer term sustainable solutions that will address our own problems.
Board members of the NEDC then proceeded to Kondiga and Bama town to commission newly constructed police barracks. It is meant to address accommodation challenges of officers and men posted to the two resettled towns. The Northeast Development Commission has assured to always bring developmental projects to the Northeast until the region is stabilized. Borno State over the years has been setting the pace when it comes to the creation of opportunities for women. Under the administration of Professor Zulum, women have been in the spotlight with arrays of initiatives designed to improve the standard of living of the vulnerable women and children, especially survivors of the 13-year insurgency. Let's take this report. Women, most often the biggest losers in every conflict the world has ever seen. They pay the steep price in the violation of their bodies, the loss of their children, the death of their husbands, and the extreme deprivations that are often the outcome of crisis. In conservative societies, a woman's aspirations could be limited by the ceiling foisted on her in the name of religion and traditional beliefs. It is common to see women who, for these reasons, never even have a chance to dream or forced to give up their dreams completely where they ever did. They marry early, bear many children, have extremely low literacy level, enjoy very limited nutrition, and become no more than domestic hens. In some cases, they are exposed to several other hazards, including trafficking. The paradox of the shining example of women in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, is that although the state has been in the throes of Boko Haram's campaign of terror, the violence by one of the world's deadliest terror group has not deterred the government of Professor Governor Zulum to swim against the tide and fetch women their due. The governor's program for women and children is part of his 10-part agenda being executed through the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. The Zulum administration has continued to promote girl-child education and empowerment through skill acquisition and training for vulnerable women. The Women Development Center in Maiduguri is a major statement of intent in the government's determination to train hundreds of women in the state. Most vulnerable women, including widows and orphans, are being trained in skills like tailoring, throw pillow designs, and others to make them self-sufficient.
This is our tailoring class, and you see how women are training. These women, some of them are widows, some are vulnerable. Though there are some girls, they are learning how to sew their clothes. With the end of the training, the military will empower them so to stand on their own, and they are supporting their families. They will come around 9 and they will close by 3 o'clock. Yes, from Monday to Friday. Yes, there are a lot of women. There are about 300 or 200 we have it, but they will come. We divided them into class. You know, we have first batch, second batch, third batch, like that. In the first batch, we have about 20 to 30 women. We'll train them for 3 months. Then after that, we'll call another batch to train. These skills, it can help them to their families. We have different type of skills. We have another class for throw pillow and bed sheets. Even now we are planning for our another skill for saloon class. We have a saloon class too. Yes, and also we have a catering class. Yes, for cooking food, snacks. Yes.
Aisha Ali is a trainer at the center. She has been helping the government to train vulnerable women and girls in tailoring for more than 10 years. Aisha is excited to be part of the success stories of hundreds of women passing through this training facility.
I have been training people on part-time basis since 2007. I have trained about 3,000 women. I have a list of those I have trained. Some are married, while some are widows. They are enjoying the training. I have also derived a lot of benefits from the training. People should not joke with the workshop. I want to encourage women to be part of the training. After the training, some of them do get employment outside. Some remain here to work with us.
Other notable projects by the Zulum administration include renovation and modeling of the visually impaired workshop at Badum, Maiduguri, which has brought a new lease of life for such group of people. Renovation and remodeling of the Family Support Nursery and Primary School Maiduguri has also been completed. The school has been providing education for children who lost their parent due to the insurgency. Another project is the construction of additional hostels at the Fatima Sharif Orphanage for the comfort of the orphans. In continuation of its successful and sustainable livelihood for women and girls, the Borno State Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, in collaboration with the United Nations Population Fund (UNFPA), constructed a befitting livelihood center which comprises skill acquisition departments. Here, women and girls are trained in various skills as well as serving as a shelter for survivors of gender-based violence. The center has become a point of reference for women empowerment and resilience for the teeming females in the state. The plight of the vulnerable is also central to the administration of Professor Governor Zulum, with numerous projects designed to uplift their standards of living, especially women and children, as well as victims of insurgency. It is evident that the Borno State government has been investing massively in economic empowerment, touching the lives of vulnerable women and children in the society. Join me as I engage the Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, Zuwaira Gambo, as she brings us up to speed with activities of the ministry under the Zulum administration.
For us, it's a big opportunity. It's a more challenging opportunity because you were there before and now you have been recalled, so expectations are very high. But for me, it's a period of consolidation, an opportunity to build on what has been established, especially when it comes to issues relating to women and children and people living with disabilities. So we are grateful for being able to be given this opportunity again, and we hope to deliver the mandate keen into the leadership of our principal, Professor Governor Zulum. Well, we are glad, we are grateful, we are happy that security has returned to Borno State. And as a result of that, all the components of the 10-pact agenda of His Excellency have taken fruition, one of which is the resettlement of IDPs and other victims of the insurgency. Most of these victims, I want to start with the victims, are people that have gone through a lot of trauma, women whose husbands were killed, whose children were abducted, women who sometimes have babies while in custody, young girls like the Chibok girls that were abducted, and so many other women, especially those that are vulnerable. Maybe their communities were destroyed and they probably were either blind or crippled or have so many other physical challenges and have been taken to the bush, but to the glory of God and because of the both kinetic and non-kinetic approach of the government to securing Borno State, a lot of these victims, including unaccompanied and separated children, are now free and are being reintegrated to their families after very diligent and thorough family tracing processes. So that alone, the idea of reconciling families, the idea of reintegrating displaced persons, the idea of repatriating people that were hitherto displaced, to a large extent has brought happiness, confidence to the people. And so because a large number of these people are women and children, we are very much involved. We have taken part in tracing and reintegrating over 5,000 children, yes, who were separated from their families, who were unaccompanied. We have a very strong team of social workers and other partners who support us in this initiative. Once a child or children are brought out of the bush or found loitering around or picked anywhere, the first thing we do, bring them to the rehabilitation center and engage them in very serious mental health and psychosocial support. Having satisfied their mental status and other physical examinations and confirm that they are well and fit, we begin the process of family tracing. And this we do by identifying their local government areas, their ward. The team of social workers will now go to these villages and communities with the pictures of the victims, having visited the communities and confirmed through a very strong structure on ground. The traditional rulers are involved, the religious leaders are involved, the women leaders, the security agencies in that community are all involved, and certify that yes, this child, even though was abducted or maybe kidnapped some couple of years ago, we can categorically tell you that this child came from this community. We now come back, the team of social workers will return to the center and now invite the families and the community leaders, including the local government officials, to ascertain again that this child, whom we have traced the family, is ready for reintegration. And when they are going home, the government, with support from our partners, especially if it is children, UNICEF, they are taken back to their families and their communities with support in terms of food, in terms of skill acquisition, startup packs, because while they are in custody, they undergo some form of training, so that at the end of the day, they are given startup packs to join their communities. I think you understand. They are not going back as vulnerable people, but as if they are children, they have been trained in some kind of skills, and while they're in the rehabilitation center, they go through what we call temporary learning systems. We have spaces within the rehabilitation centers that give these children some form of education, both Western and Islamic. So by the time they are going back to their communities, they are well equipped to continue schooling in the communities. And bearing in mind that the government has already rebuilt schools, rebuilt hospitals, provided houses for the returning displaced persons, these children are well taken care of, and the education continues in the communities of return. Again, we have a very good partnership with some of the agencies we are collaborating with. So they may have come out as very vulnerable children, but because the government has put a structure on ground to support their family tracing, to support their integration, and sustainable way of life in the communities of return, that way life has returned practically to normal in Borno, and everybody is being carried along. At the same time, you asked about the women. There are women who come out, maybe widows, their children, their husbands have been killed, or they were abducted and kidnapped. The same process is followed. We trace their families and reintegrate them with their families. If she was taken away from her husband and the husband is alive, beautiful, we reintegrate them. And while they're in our custody again, they are trained in various skills: tailoring, cap making, incense production, all kinds of skills that they can go to practice when they go back to their communities. And these skills are administered after a very thorough needs assessment. It is based on what they want to learn, because we have so many skills. And this again, when they return, they go back with what to continue with the skills. And we also capture very seriously financial management studies. It's very important, because it's not just about learning the skill or being given the equipment to practice the skill, but having a sustainable business that is manageable and sustainable.
talk to us through some of the initiatives you've brought about to put smiles on the faces of women in Maiduguri.
Basically, since His Excellency became the governor of the state, we have a very robust partnership with the wife of the governor, our first lady. We are able to celebrate and mark all the days that have been documented by the UN as days that are kept aside to celebrate women. For instance, the International Women's Day, the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, the International Day of the Girl Child. Even for children, we celebrate the Children's Day on the 27th of May. We also have the International Day of Peace, which also women, exactly. So each of these days are set aside by the government of Borno State to impact on what the women need. Is it education? Is it health? Is it economic empowerment? And this also involves those IDPs in the camp before they were closed and other victims of gender-based violence. How do we do that? For instance, for the internally displaced persons, we go around the camps, identify a certain number. The first time we did it, we empowered 330 from 10 camps who have been trained in various skills. So to mark that day, the governor's wife went, spent the whole day with them, sensitizing them on their rights as women, on closing up the generation, doing away with the culture of silence, giving women voice. And she realized that you cannot give a woman that is hungry a voice. You cannot give a woman that cannot send her daughter to school a voice. You cannot give a woman that is not educated a voice. So all these factors come to play when it comes to empowerment. It's just not about giving them tools. No, it's a holistic way of building their confidence, returning the lost security which they had suffered as a result of the insurgency, and most importantly, empowering them to have a sustainable way of life. We distributed sewing machines, cosmetology items, cap making accessories, and so many other skilled equipment that the women had learned over a period and given the opportunity to go and practice and become earners of economic income generating activities instead of just depending on handouts. And when we do that, we also bring them into cooperative groups. So there's some kind of check and balances. It's part of our monitoring and evaluation mechanism, whereby if you're given something, you are being monitored. And now, when we started, we made them train the trainers. And I want to assure you that from the first 300, we've had over 3,000 because they go to train them. And so when we confirm you have been trained, we also empower you. And then there's another issue that is very critical to us, which the government has intervened seriously. At one point, we realized that some of the daughters were not going to school. Bearing in mind that education is free in Borno State, there are buses to take these children to school. In that dawn, we did a census in the host communities where we have very vulnerable women. I realized that some of the mothers cannot even afford the 50 naira that you give your child to buy maybe kuli snack or akara. And so the governor and his wife said, if people should bring up some kind of data based on the census the ministry did. And we were able to identify such women in communities where we decided on skills that do not need vigorous training. And so we empowered them as vendors, food vendors. All the accessories were bought by the government and presented to them so that they could go trade in that and feed, give their children the 10 or 5 naira, 15 naira that they needed to go to school. We also got grinding machines and distributed to the women. These machines had generators that you don't need electricity to operate. So these grinding machines, they grind in their communities and they generated money. And that brought a lot of relief and encouraged the girls to be taken away from the street and go to school. And at the bottom of it all, we don't only do Western education, because if you look at the history of the insurgency, it is the lack of Islamic education that pushed a lot of these young men. So they go hand in hand in Borno State. As we are teaching them Western education, we are also making them understand the true meaning of Islam, so that nobody can penetrate their mind and sort of misguide them in the future. And it is working very well for us. And I also want you to understand that women, as heads of households, are more compassionate, they are more committed, they are more dedicated. And when a woman has children, the children are her own. They come out of her womb. A man with all sense of responsibility may have 3, 4 wives. And so his attachment to these children will not be in the same way. And so because the governor is someone that is very compassionate, he understands the logic of giving these women, because if you give a woman, she will make sure that even the husband eats out of it. She sees it as her responsibility, because a woman will do anything to provide her for her family. The same thing was with a man. But a woman that is head of a family is more likely to look after the children than someone that may have so many of such responsibilities, and the resources he is being given will be dragged from left, right, and center. Because the governor is a grassroots man, he is a mobilizer, he's seen it all. He decides to employ very realistic methods and processes that he knows will bring results at the end of the day. All the palliatives, you don't see them in the market. The women make sure that they feed their children. And this is very rare. And because he has done his homework, and he knows that once you empower the woman, it is the entire family you are empowering. And I think that is the logic behind his method